by the rivers of Babylon. Yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying. Oh,
Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome to another Bible class, Bible study. My name is Uzziah Lewy. I'm one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York. Giving all honor, glory, and praise to the Most High, King of the universe, for life, food, clothing, and shelter, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Thanking the Most High God for another day of life and praying that the Creator will continue to bless and keep each and every one of us as we come here today to learn his laws, his statutes, and his commandments, to learn the words that he left forth on record for us to follow, that we might even be blessed with knowledge, wisdom, and above all, understanding. Giving all honor, glory, and praise to the Creator of heaven and earth, Yahweh Zebaot, for all things and everything. Hallelujah. Praying that the Most High God will continue to be with all those people that are out there, the fatherless, the poor, the needy, the widow, the homeless, those who are incarcerated unjustly, that the Most High God would have bestow blessings upon them, even in the house of many doors, and that the Creator will continue to keep all of those who need his blessing even during this time. Those who are sick, we pray that the Most High God be with you all. Those who are going through any type of trauma or any type of mental sickness, we pray that the Most High God will heal you also. Giving all honor, glory, and praise once again to the Most High God. How is everyone feeling out there? Thanking everyone out there for your support of this channel. Praying that everyone is doing well. Also, thanking everyone for your support of Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH. As we announced, we just as a quick announcement, we have a raffle that we will be raffling off on November 26th. The drawing will be November 26th. This is a raffle that the first prize is $1,200, second prize is $500, third prize is $300. That's for everyone out there that's interested. So just putting it out there for everyone before we get started. Today we will be going over what is a stranger and or a foreigner. And for that, I'll turn it over to my brother, Rabbi Chief Binyamin. How are you, Rabbi?
I'm doing good, giving praise and honor to the Most High. Hopefully you're doing well, along with everyone that is out there watching this day. We thank the Most High for our lives and praying that he would bless us with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding as he has blessed us to continue out for our Bible study every week, every Sunday morning, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And just praying that everyone is well and that we can all grow in knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, as well as our service to the Creator of the heavens and the earth. Today we'll be talking about the stranger or the foreigner. That is a term or terms that we see frequently within the Holy Scriptures, along with some translations, some English translations that may use the word alien. So we wanted to today talk about the differences in terms of the usage of stranger, foreigner, alien, and the context that those words are used within the Holy Scriptures and how they apply overall in terms of the observance of the commandments, statutes, and judgments of the Creator of the heavens and the earth. So we do invite everyone to join in with our Bible study today and every week. as long as you use the Bible as the foundation of your belief, then we definitely welcome you to join us in this Bible study. Subscribe to the channel, participate with your comments. You could also ask questions. We'll spend some time on the subject and then open it up for questions and comments afterwards from those that may have any. So in regards to a stranger or the foreigner, and we're speaking in context to the commandments, statutes, and judgments of God, and how it relates. Well, we know that as we read the Holy Scriptures, God selected Abraham, made a covenant with him, which extended to Isaac, Abraham's son, and which extended from there to Jacob, Abraham's grandson, and Jacob's name was changed to Israel. And Israel had 12 sons, and each of those sons became the progenitor of a tribe. So therefore we know the concept of the 12 tribes of Israel from that point on. God gave Abraham and his descendants through Isaac and Jacob the land that Abraham walked through, which at that time was known as the land of Canaan. And God specified the borders, which overall was supposed to extend from the Euphrates River to the River of Egypt, and also bounded by the Mediterranean Sea on the west and the Jordan River on the east. So just giving some historical as well as geographical background as it relates to the children of Israel and in relation to the territory or the land that the children of Israel were given by God. And and then continuing from there, we know that the children of Israel spent some time in Egypt. God delivered the children of Israel out of Egypt, out of that slavery that was being faced during that time, via Moses and the signs and the wonders that were placed within Moses' hands by God. And the children of Israel came out of Egypt, was in the desert, the Sinai, Mount Sinai, and received the commandments, statutes, and judgments of God from there. So from there, we know that as Moses was speaking to the children of Israel in the desert at Mount Sinai, giving them the commandments, statutes, and judgments, that these commandments, which go beyond the 10 commandments that most people know about, that these commandments were given to the children of Israel, but Israel being a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, as was specified by God when we read in Exodus chapter 19, the intention was for the children of Israel to teach the commandments, statutes, and judgments of God to other nations. And this is how it applies to our subject of the day, or as we speak about foreigners. And the concept of the foreigner or the stranger or the alien helps us to understand, well, going back a little bit, everybody, all the nations of the earth are supposed to be following one God, following the commandments of God. And as the children of Israel are teaching these commandments, there are going to be people of foreign nations or other nations. And this is where the terminology in many of the English translations, they just translate the Hebrew word, or they translate a series of Hebrew words as stranger. And we're going to speak about, a few of those words today as we have our discussion. So the word that we're going to speak about today first is going to be the stranger, which in the Hebrew, and today we're going to, go into more Hebrew translation than we normally do. And only because this would help us to understand the concept and the context in regards to the stranger. A lot of times we try to focus just on, the English language, because there's a lot of understanding that we can obtain with the English language and in terms of how we apply the commandments, statutes, and judgments of God. But for today's conversation, we do have to go into the Hebrew language, which is the language that the Holy Scriptures, a majority of the Holy Scriptures, which was originally written in, and therefore would help us to understand the context. So the first appearance of dealing with a stranger as it relates to the commandments of God given to the children of Israel is in Exodus chapter 12. And this is in relation to Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So we'll start from verse 15 in Exodus chapter 12, where it says, 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread, howbeit the first day you shall put away leaven out of your houses, for whosoever eats leavened bread from the first day until the seventh day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. And we started here just to give the context of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and we know it's directly connected with the Exodus of the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. And as a result of that, year by year, the children of Israel are commanded to remember that event coming out of Egypt by observing the Feast of Unleavened Bread for those 7 days. And the major part of that observance is by not eating leavened bread for 7 days and consequently eating unleavened bread for those 7 days. And continues by saying, and in the first day there shall be to you a holy convocation, and in the seventh day a holy convocation. No manner of work shall be done in them, save that which every man must eat. That only may be done by you. And you shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, for in this selfsame day have I brought your hosts out of the land of Egypt. Therefore shall you observe this day throughout your generations by an ordinance forever. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month at even, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at even. 7 days shall there be no leaven found in your houses, for whosoever eats that which is leavened, that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he be a sojourner or one that is born in the land. And in relation to the commandments of God, this is the first time we see this word, which is the word ger, or pronounced ger. It's the Hebrew word ger. And as you see on the right-hand side of the screen, it's translated as foreigner, stranger, temporary dweller, or newcomer. These are some of the English translations that you would see for this word ger. And with the Feast of Unleavened Bread, again, we know that it's specific to the children of Israel to commemorate coming out of Egypt, not having time for the dough to rise. So therefore, the children of Israel ate unleavened bread coming out of Egypt. So it's commemorated year by year by the children of Israel by eating unleavened bread for 7 days to remember that event. So foreign nations or nations, beside the children of Israel, did not share that specific experience. However, foreign nations are still required to keep the commandments of God. So therefore, when it comes to the Feast of Unleavened Bread, God said those that are among the congregation of Israel, which would be the descendants of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob directly, and then also as it relates to the land that was given as an inheritance to the children of Israel, there would be foreign nations dwelling among them that are also keeping the commandments or have a desire to keep the commandments, statutes, and judgments of God. So therefore, God says that whether it's a sojourner or one that is born in the land, and bearing in mind that God is speaking to Moses to speak this to the children of Israel while they're still in Egypt, getting ready to come out. So God is saying whether it's a sojourner or one born in the land, talking about the land of Canaan that was going to be given to the children of Israel, that everybody that's dwelling within that territory, that acknowledges that there's only one God that created the heavens and the earth, and acknowledges that it's the same God that brought the children of Israel out of Egypt, that everybody has to remove leaven from their homes during this period of time. We're going to jump down to, because it continues to talk about the history of what took place during that time. And then God speaks specifically about the Passover offering. We're going to go back to 45 shortly, but we're still speaking about this word ger. And it says, so we'll start from 46. In one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth aught of the flesh abroad out of the house, neither shall you break a bone thereof. Again, this is talking about the Passover offering. That when it's being done, this is the statute of the Passover offering, that is eaten in one house and is roasted whole, and people have to eat it that night. Don't break a bone of it. And it continues in verse 47. all the congregation of Israel shall keep it. And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, and will keep the Passover to Jehovah, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land, but no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourns among you. So still talking about this word ger. So this foreigner, or these foreigners that are dwelling in the land, that have a desire to keep the commandments of God, have to keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread by not eating leavened bread during that time, removing leaven from their homes as well during that period of time. And in regards to the Passover sacrifice, that is also done year by year prior to the Feast of Unleavened Bread starting, that they also can keep it, but they have to be circumcised. So again, you see this word here in this verse 48, where it's the word ger in relation to this foreigner that is still able to keep these commandments. And then on verse 49, which is a popular verse that is repeated in various sections of the Holy Scriptures, where it says, one law shall be for the homeborn and unto the stranger. And when it's talking about that one law, which is the subject that we're talking about today, is speaking about this foreigner, so someone of another nation that has a desire to keep the commandments of God. And as a side note, as we go on with our Bible study, as you heard the name of God pronounced in verse 48, that we do so as we're reading to know of the God that we're speaking about and the God that is speaking to us through these words. So we pronounce the name of God as Jehovah. Many people pronounce the name of God as Yahweh. And again, we do so is in the Hebrew text. Many English translations, instead of putting the name of God, put the words the Lord, with Lord being all capital letters or just a capital L. But again, for the purposes of our Bible study, we do pronounce the name of God. However, and one of the reasons of having this conversation is as we go back in verse 45, it says, a sojourner and a hired servant shall not eat thereof. And it's talking about the Passover. Actually, we'll start from verse 43 real quick. And you hosted unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no alien eat thereof, but every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. A sojourner and a hired servant shall not eat thereof. So it's these words appear various times in the Holy Scriptures, in the English translations. Sometimes they say stranger, sometimes you'll see foreigner, sometimes you'll see alien. It mentions this word here, sojourner, as well, along with the hired servant. And therefore, we, as we're studying this, we have to obtain the context of what is being spoken. So when it says that in verse 43, that there shall no alien eat thereof, you have this word called nakar, which is also translated as foreigner or foreign alien, and or that was which is foreign. And the actual is actually two words here to just have it in context. Ben nakar. Ben means son. It's the Hebrew word for son. And then you have nakar, which is again a foreigner as well. So a ben nakar or just a nakar is a foreigner, and this is someone. And I think a lot of the English translations do the best that they can to translate these words differently, even though a lot of times they just translate these words all a stranger. But I think a lot of the time, a good portion of the times, the English translations try to use a different word for ger, which is we saw earlier as stranger, as opposed to nakar, which is translated in this chapter as an alien. This is someone that is not, this is someone that is of a foreign nation that is not and has no intentions of keeping the commandments or keeping the Torah or the law of God. And therefore, they would not be permitted to eat of the Passover at all. And it mentions here in verse 44, but every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. So now, if it's a foreigner that is a servant to one of the children of Israel, as long as that individual is circumcised, and of course, along with that, they would be keeping other commandments of God, then they would be able to eat of the Passover. But the nakar, or this foreigner, or translated here as alien, cannot eat thereof, because they have no intention of keeping the laws of God overall. And then in verse 44, or actually verse 45, it says, a sojourner and a hired servant shall not eat thereof. And then we see here, there's another word here in Hebrew called toshav, which they translate here as sojourner. And as you see in the right-hand side, is often translated as stranger as well. But a toshav coming from a root word in Hebrew, yashav, which is to sit or to dwell. This is someone that, just for context, is of a foreign nation, doesn't keep the commands of God, but is just dwelling within the land for a temporary period of time. This could be someone that is passing through as a trader, trader, someone that's trading, someone that's doing business within the land of a foreign nation, but has no intention of doing the laws of God. And then you have this other word here, which is sakir, which is someone that's hired. This would also be a foreigner, but that's someone that's just in the land for a temporary period of time that is being hired to do some sort of task. So this chapter here gives us these various translations and helps us get the context of the foreigner or the stranger. And when it relates to the 10 Commandments, as we'll skip down, we're not going to be able to go through all of the usages of ger and nakar, nakri, and toshav, but we're just using some of these chapters to give us the context. So in the 10 Commandments, as God speaks it to the children of Israel at Mount Sinai, we have the Sabbath day, where in Exodus chapter 20, verse 8, it says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath unto Jehovah thy God. In it thou shalt not do any manner of work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that's within thy gates. So we see the word stranger here, again, which is ger. So that's why the stranger or the foreigner also has to keep the Sabbath day, because again, this word ger, which is translated as stranger in many English translations, or foreigner in some translations, is someone that has all intentions of keeping the laws, commandments, statutes of God, and therefore they are bound to keep the Sabbath day, as well as they will be bound to keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread and have the opportunity to observe the Passover. So as a result of that, as you know, the children of Israel having foreigners among them, that God gives this command that in chapter 22, where it says in verse 20, and a stranger thou shalt not wrong, neither shalt thou oppress him, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. So the word here in Hebrew in this verse is ger, where God is saying not to wrong or oppress a stranger. So those individuals or foreign nations or nations outside of the children of Israel that are dwelling amongst them in the land, God has commanded the children of Israel to treat them good, basically. Don't wrong them, don't oppress them just because they're foreign, because God is also having compassion upon them and teaching the children of Israel to have compassion on foreigners the same way that initially the Egyptians had compassion on Jacob and his children when they started dwelling in the land of Egypt. And God is telling them about that. And then we're going to go to chapter 23. And, we're going to talk about, it's basically the same thing again in verse 9. And a stranger shalt thou not oppress, for you know the heart of a stranger, seeing you were strangers in the land of Egypt. So again, God is teaching compassion for the stranger, that strangers should have the opportunity to dwell within the land of Israel, among the children of Israel. And as a result of that, the children of Israel would not oppress them in any way. I'm going to jump to the book of Leviticus, chapter 16. And we're going to go to verse 29. This is talking about the Day of Atonement, which will be coming up in a few weeks, actually. And then, when that time comes up, we'll be talking about the Day of Atonement, also known as Yom Kippur. So Leviticus, we're just going to focus on this verse here because, for the other chapters, we delve into the context of what the ger and the nachri and the toshav are. So now as we go in here, we could just delve into some of these verses specifically, also in the interest of time. So Leviticus chapter 16, verse 29, it says, "And it shall be a statute forever unto you. In the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, you shall afflict your souls and shall do no manner of work, the homeborn or the stranger that sojourns among you." So again, the stranger, a person of a foreign nation, foreign to the children of Israel, also has to observe the Day of Atonement. They would also be afflicting themselves on this day and keeping that day holy. And then we're just going to go into the next chapter, which is speaking about sacrifices and who can give sacrifices, where sacrifices can be performed, and how they are to be performed. And this chapter, God is telling the children of Israel that they can only bring their sacrifices upon the altar that he specified it to be done on, which is that brazen altar, which we read about in the book of Exodus, which was constructed at Mount Sinai. So from that point onward, the children of Israel were not allowed to perform sacrifices anywhere else except that particular altar. And in verse 8, it says, "And thou shalt say unto them, whatsoever man there be of the house of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn among them, that offers a burnt offering or sacrifice, and brings it not unto the door of the tent of meeting to sacrifice it unto Jehovah, even that man shall be cut off from his people." So even amongst the foreign nations, that if they were to give a sacrifice to the creator of the heavens and the earth, the true and the living God, they would also be required to bring that sacrifice upon that altar that was specified by God. And then continuing in verse 10, "And whatsoever man there be of the house of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn among them, that eats any manner of blood, I will set my face against that soul that eats blood, and will cut him off from among his people." So we're seeing here that this foreigner, this stranger, so far is bound to keeping Passover of eating the Passover sacrifice as long as they're circumcised, eating unleavened bread during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and refraining from leavened bread, keeping the Sabbath day holy, and here being required to bring offerings only on the altar that God specified for the children of Israel to also give offerings on, and they are also commanded not to eat blood of any animal. And then jumping to verse 12, again, it says, "Therefore I said unto the children of Israel, no soul of you shall eat blood, neither shall any stranger that sojourns among you eat blood." So we see here in context this word ger, which is translated as stranger here. The context is always specifying of the stranger that sojourns among the children of Israel. So these are foreigners that are dwelling in the land. These are not foreigners that are passing through the land, that are just there to do business. They're not just being hired by somebody. That these are those that are actually dwelling among the children of Israel in the land, staying there permanently. It's the same way as countries today in the world. People can get citizenship, as they migrate from one country to another. So this is the same concept. This is a concept of old, that people can be of a different nation and go to dwell amongst another nation and obtain citizenship. And as they obtain citizenship, they're bound by all of the rules and the regulations of that country that they're in. And this country, and so therefore, whether it's the United States, this country, or any other country, there's a process for citizenship. And within this chapter, it mentions the stranger various times in all of these verses. And verse 13, "And whatsoever man there be of the children of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn among them, that takes in hunting any beast or fowl that may be eaten, he shall pour out the blood thereof and cover it with dust." And verse 15, "And every soul that eats that which dies of itself, or that which is torn of beast, whether he be homeborn or stranger, he shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. Then shall he be clean." So the children of Israel as well as the stranger that sojourns among them, are bound by keeping all of these laws, not eating blood, not eating of any animal that is clean, that dies of itself. And just jump into the next chapter here, verse 15. Actually, not verse 26. Ye therefore shall keep my statutes and my ordinances, and shall not do any of these abominations, neither the homeborn nor the stranger that sojourns among you. So again, and just in context, verse 27, for all these abominations have the men of the land done that were before you, and the land is defiled. So as you go back and read from the beginning of Leviticus chapter 18, you see all of these practices that God is prohibiting: incest, adultery, homosexuality, bestiality. All of these things are mentioned within this chapter, and God is saying that the children of Israel, as well as the foreigner or the stranger that dwells among them, are not supposed to perform any of these things. And along with that, as you read earlier, that the children of Israel are supposed to respect, honor, and consequently not oppress the foreigner, as we will read here in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 33. And if a stranger sojourn with thee in your land, you shall not do him wrong. The stranger that sojourns with you shall be unto you as the homeborn among you, and thou shalt love him as thyself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am Yahweh, your God. So there's many more verses that we can go into in regards to talking about the stranger or the foreigner that dwells among the children of Israel. Again, that's the context that we're focusing on in regards to that. And then briefly, we're going to just see if we can go into a couple of verses that talk about the Nakri. This is someone that is a foreign nation that doesn't do the laws of God. And actually, also for the interest of time, we'll just do this verse here. This is Deuteronomy chapter 14. And Deuteronomy chapter 14, as it relates to Leviticus chapter 11, details the animals that are clean or otherwise permissible to be eaten versus the animals that are unclean and are not permissible to be eaten. And we read earlier that the children of Israel, as well as a stranger, is not supposed to eat blood and not supposed to eat a clean animal that dies of itself or torn of beasts. But it says here in verse 21, you shall not eat of anything that dies of itself. Thou shalt give it unto the stranger that's within thy gates, that he may eat it, or thou mayest sell it unto a foreigner, for thou art a holy people unto Jehovah thy God. Thou shalt not seethe a kid in his mother's milk. So we're not going to speak about the latter part of this verse, but we're just bringing up this verse here because this where a lot of the controversy or possibly confusion may come into play. Because we read earlier that the word ger, which is a stranger, is someone that is doing law. And you have this word here, ger again, which is foreigner. And God is telling the children of Israel that they can give of these clean animals that die of themselves unto a foreigner, unto this ger, and they may eat of it. But we know specifically the children of Israel are not supposed to eat of these things. And now the ger, as they're receiving this, as we read in Leviticus chapter 17, if they are ones that are keeping the laws of God or have a desire to keep the laws of God, then they also would not be eating of something that dies of itself. But then we see the difference in how the children of Israel treat an animal that dies of itself to two different categories of foreigners. Because they translate the word here, ger, as stranger, and then they translate the word nakar as foreigner, just to give a distinction. So the children of Israel can sell an animal that dies of itself to ben nakar or a nakri, as it says here, as the word is used here in this chapter. But this is a foreigner that is not keeping the laws of God. So that's why, again, the context is important for us to understand. Many of our translations use ger and nakar as stranger and alien interchangeably, but these words have specific meanings. And just to give another context, when it talks about the year of release in Deuteronomy chapter 15, where every seventh year, everybody that that has lent money to anyone, if they didn't receive all their money back, or they weren't paid back everything that they lent, then in the seventh year they are supposed to release it. But it says in verse 3, of a Nakri, or of a foreigner, thou may exact it, but whatsoever is thine of thy brother, thy hand shall release it. So if it's someone of a foreign nation that is not keeping the commands of God, that is not dwelling among the children of Israel, then the children of Israel can still, get that loan repaid even after the seventh year or that year of release. So we're going to stop here, because what we normally do each week is spend 20 minutes to half an hour on our discussion each day. Again, there are a lot of verses that talk about the strangers, talk about the foreigner or the alien, as many of these translations use. And we just wanted to speak overall in terms of the context and the differences in regards to what a stranger is. So we see overall, a stranger is someone that is of a foreign nation that dwells among the children of Israel. That word is coming from the Hebrew word ger. And then you have the stranger or the foreigner that, whether among the children of Israel, passing through temporarily and has no intention of keeping the laws of God, that word is nakri, or you'll see the combination words ben nakar to describe that foreigner or that stranger. And being that that individual or those individuals have no intention of keeping the commands of God, then the children of Israel can do things such as sell them animals that die of themselves, exact repayment of loans even beyond the seventh year of release. And also, just another thing, just to make a distinction between the ger and the nakri, the ger and the ben toshav before we close. We'll just give this final verse. This is Deuteronomy chapter 23. And we've had discussions about loans and not collecting interest. But God tells the children of Israel, they're not, in verse 20, thou shalt not lend upon interest to thy brother, interest of money, interest of victuals, interest of anything that is lent upon interest. Unto a foreigner thou mayest lend upon interest, but unto thy brother thou shalt not lend upon interest, that Jehovah thy God may bless thee in all that thou puttest thy hand unto, in the land whither thou goest in to possess. And again, here this word is nakri. So children of Israel can exact interest or collect interest on loans to this foreigner or these foreigners that are not keeping the laws of God, along with accepting payment or repayment of loans even beyond the seventh year of release. So we're going to stop here so that we could give some time for any questions or comments that people may have in regards to this subject or any subject that people may have at this time. Again, we thank the Most High, Jehovah God, for this opportunity to have this Bible study, to be able to open up his word, and just praying that he will bless us all with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. So for those that may have any questions or comments at this time, they may do so. And for that, I'll turn it back over to Chief Uziel, who will moderate this portion of our Bible study.
Hallelujah. Torah Abba, Rabbi. Thank you all. And the first question that I would have would be, I don't know if you touched it. In terms of foreigner and stranger, there's a part in the Torah that speaks about clean animals that die of themselves. They're unclean to Israel, but it says you're free to sell it to the stranger. Which stranger is that talking about?
One it's being sold to would be the foreigner that is not keeping law. So that would be the nakri or ben nakar. So that's the foreigner that's not keeping law. The children of Israel can sell it to that foreigner.
So things they don't discuss in church. One law, Torah text Leviticus 24:22. What's for foreigners living in the land of Israel? What about Gentiles in foreign lands who want to worship Yah? Isaiah 49:6, Psalm 147, verses 19 through 20, Matthew chapter 28, verses 19 to 20, Acts 15:21.
So being that the laws of God are supposed to be upheld by all nations, and the children of Israel are supposed to be a light to the nations and also a kingdom of priests to the nations, then all nations are required to keep the laws of God. So therefore, the nations that are dwelling in their own countries, they still have a responsibility to keep the laws of God. And the children of Israel, once those foreigners or those strangers, say that they want to keep the laws of God, then they have to be treated as such, as a sojourner that would be among them, even though they're dwelling in their own countries. So it's the intention of God was for the children of Israel to make sure that the law of God is spread throughout all of the earth.
Let me see here. Question, this is from JDM. What do you say to those who hold stipulations such as a conversion prior to keeping holy days?
Yeah, in terms of the Torah itself, when we read in the Holy Scriptures, there is no process of conversion as it relates to what people will go through today. In terms of the religion of Judaism that has a process of conversion, there's no process within the Holy Scriptures itself that details that. Amongst the children of Israel themselves, they are bound by the covenant. So the children of Israel have to keep the laws of God. And once someone turns from whatever way of life that they were doing before and decide to serve the creator of the heavens and the earth, then that's basically the process right there that they would, say from that point onward that they are going to follow the law of God. And the same thing would apply to a foreigner as well. So when it comes to keeping holy days, as the question is asking specifically, we're just bound to keep the holy days holy, and we just have to do it.
JDM, another question. Does D.C.B ever use actual moon sightings in Israel for determining the holy days, or just solely rely on scientific calculations?
So for this congregation, for the holy days, we rely on the calendar, or the Hebrew calendar specifically, or some people may refer to it as the Hillel calendar. So D.C.B doesn't rely on actual moon sightings. And the Hebrew calendar is based on some scientific calculations to an extent. So just to add that part from the question, but no, is not, or D.C.B is not relying on scientific calculations directly. There's a Hebrew calendar that's been in existence for centuries, and that's the calendar that D.C.B uses for the holy days.
Kalora Washington writes, my question is, what if you begin living as a Hebrew and you aren't circumcised? Do you have to get physically circumcised in order to be a part of the holy days? Or of the, I guess, more, the question will be of the covenant.
Right. Of the covenant, yes, all males have to be circumcised. It's not, it's not specific to holy days or anything else like that. All males have to be circumcised to be accepted into the covenant of God. Now, technically, of course, all the children of Israel are born into the covenant, but as God told Abraham, the sign of that covenant, or the sign that shows that there's an agreement between God and those individuals that are keeping the laws of God, then all males must be circumcised.
Yalita Moore, why do Jewish people say that Rosh Hashanah is the anniversary of Adam and Eve, or creation, I guess they mean.
That's more of a tradition. It is. That would be more of a tradition in stating that what we would know, or as this congregation would know as Yom Teruah, the day of the horn blast, and amongst Judaism is known as Rosh Hashanah, or the beginning of the year, or the head of the year, as a more specific translation, that they were by tradition relate that the world was created during that time. So that's again more of a just tradition as opposed to something specifically written in the Holy Scriptures or some sort of calculation that can be accurately determined.
JDM, what is D.C.B's take on the structure, materials, and construction of a sukkah? Do you all sleep in yours overnight?
People have their own traditions in terms of how they would deal with it, but there's no one standard in terms of this congregation on how to deal with dwelling in a booth or a sukkah during Sukkot. Some individuals that don't have property to build one on just find time within each of those 7 days to go to one in order to pray for a period of time. Those that do have property that they can build one on may just spend a portion of time in the day dwelling in there, sitting in there, eating in there. And then some may, weather permitting, might just spend the night in there if they're able to. But there's no one tradition or one standard in terms of this congregation or amongst the various congregations of Israel on how to deal with, dwelling in the booth during Sukkot.
Kalora, Washington, question: if my children are all adults and one lives with me, but they don't honor or follow the laws, will I be held accountable for their non-doing?
We start the question from the beginning again.
Question: if my children, she's saying basically most of her children are adults and live outside of the house. Okay. There's one child that's left in the house. They do not keep the Torah. They do not follow the law, statutes, and commandments. Would she be held accountable for that child for their not doing Torah, basically?
Okay, so overall, and this would be technical, parents are, as we read in Deuteronomy chapter 6, are commanded to teach their children diligently the commands of God. There is going to be up to a certain point in the children's lives based on their age where they will be accountable for the things that they do on their own, and parents are absolved from that. There's no specific age that's given in the scripture, but as human beings, we are accountable for our own sins. It's like we read the command where it says that fathers should not be put to death for the children, neither shall children be put to death for the fathers, but every man shall die for their own sins, as we read in the book of Deuteronomy, and as is reiterated in Ezekiel chapter 18. So that question there is a technicality in regards to some extent, yes, and to some extent, no. But parents are required to teach their children diligently, meaning that just staying on top of them, even if they're adults, and reminding them of who God is, reminding them of the covenant that God made with the children of Israel, reminding them of the commandments, statutes, and judgments that are to be observed. So whether they are adults, very grown adults, young adults, teenagers, adolescents, and younger, parents have a responsibility to keep reminding and teaching their children of the commands of God. Now, if you're talking about young children that are in the house that don't, not of age to even make their own decisions on almost anything else in life, then to a greater extent, parents are responsible for what those children do and don't do in regards to the laws of God. And that's just even in regards to society overall, where there's going to be laws in certain societies, certain countries, and, cities, etc., that parents are responsible for the things that their children do because parents are supposed to raise up their children in a certain way. And that's just, what most societies would expect from parents. So, for that question, it's a broad answer. So to an extent, yes, and to an extent, no. And again, it's based on everybody having, taking accountability and,
Well, all right. She
taking
said,
responsibility for their own actions.
Rabbi,
But definitely for the younger children, yes, it would be a greater responsibility, and for the older children, a lesser responsibility, but overall, a requirement to continually teach them.
she said, I taught them all, but they went their own way. But she
Mhm.
does live here and she's 22.
And so that's, yeah, because there's no specific age, it's just a matter of just keep teaching them. And that's the best, every family dynamic is going to be different. But yeah, the parents still responsible for teaching. But in terms of what the children do, everybody's responsible for their own sin. So, that's why the question could be answered on a technicality that the parents are not accountable for what grown children um, do on their own, as long as of course the parent continues to teach them.
I know this could be a touchy subject because it depends on when and where you begin to do Torah. If your children been, if you've taught them their entire life and they were born into this way of life, I mean, the clear definition of it is that they are, and they don't walk in this way, they are stubborn and rebellious, right? They decided to go contrary to the laws of the creator of heaven and earth, right? That's one scenario. And that scenario, there's laws in the Torah for that, but obviously those laws don't, we can't push those laws today because just the nature of that law. But if they know better, if they understand Torah and you taught them and they decide to do that, which is opposite, you know, for me, if I taught my kids and they don't want to keep Torah and they don't want, then they can't live in my house. Now, there's another scenario. If you didn't always do Torah, right, and you already came up a certain way, at what point did you start teaching them? Right? Were they teenagers already? That's a little different circumstance because it's a little bit harder to try to teach them at that point. So it's going to be a little bit more flexibility for a parent like that because they understand that I got this midway. I try to teach them. They're not adhering to it yet, but there is a process. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be two different schools of thought when it comes to them. If it's a child that you reared up and doing this, and then they're blatantly just forsaking the laws of God, that's one thing. If there's a child that you didn't rear up in this from birth and they didn't grow up doing this, but along the way you learned it, you're going to have a little bit more leadway. You're going to be a little bit more merciful because you understand that they didn't get it from their youth, right? But there are rules to the house. If you are a Sabbath observer, there are rules to the house that, no cooking in my house on the Sabbath, no, don't bring in any unclean foods. There's certain things that you could implement, but in terms of a situation like that will be a little bit more difficult, Rabbi.
Yeah, in terms of, as you mentioned, when they were, or when the conversation started in regards to the teachings, and definitely the rules of the house as in regards to Torah should be upheld by everybody that's living in there, whether the individuals um, personally, you know, want to hold themselves to the covenant or not. As you mentioned, things such as keeping the Sabbath day holy and eating clean, those things should just be upheld by the household, period. Again, people make their own choices what they're going to do outside of the house, and parents can only do but so much, especially with grown children. As again, everybody's responsible for what they do on their own.
All right. So these are going to be the next couple of questions are going to be the last ones. so we could wrap up this thing. JDM, question, 2 Samuel chapter 3, verses 3 to 4, has different months listed for moms, listed for Adoniah and Adoniyahu and Absalom, but 1 Kings chapter 1, verses 5 through 6 seems to say their mom is Hagith. Please help me understand. Thanks, Rav, for your insight.
So give those chapters specifically
The
again.
chapters is 2 Samuel chapter 3, verses 3 to 4.
Second chapter, chapter 3.
Yeah, 1 Kings chapter 1, 5 and 6.
Hold on. Second Samuel chapter 3. In
Verses
regards
3
to
to 4.
Adoniah, so Adoniah is the son of Haggith, and who's the other son?
The other
question?
It says Adoniah. Different moms listed for Adoniah, Adoniyahu, and Absalom.
Okay, so
But
Absalom.
1 Kings chapter 1, verse 5 to 6 seems to say their mom is Hagith. So basically, 1 Kings said that their moms is Hagith, but in this chapter in Samuel, it says that they have different mothers.
Okay, so 2 Samuel's, as we see here, Absalom's mother is Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur, and for Adoniah, the son of Haggith. And you said in Kings?
1 Kings chapter 1, verse
First
5
Kings
and
chapter
6.
1. Now Adoniah, the son of Haggith, exalted himself, saying, I will be king, and he prepared him chariots and horsemen and 50 men to run before him. And his father had not grieved him all his life, and saying, Why hast thou done so? And he was also a very goodly man, and he was born after Absalom. And he conferred with Joab, the son of Zeruiah, and of Abiathar the priest, and they following Adoniah helped him. I just kept reading a little bit further, but it doesn't mention here who Absalom's mother is. It specifically mentioned Adoniah's mother as Haggith, as is said in 2 Samuel, because Adoniah's mother is Maacah, the son of Talmai. Yeah, so this doesn't say that they have the same mother, or it doesn't appear that they have the same mother.
So it only says he was born after Absalom.
Right, he was born after Absalom, but it doesn't say that that they have the same mother.
Let me see here. Things they don't discuss in church. This is going to be the last questions. Why was Eli punished for the misbehavior of his sons, Hophni and Pinchas? Doesn't 1 Samuel 3:13 that violate?
So this is where, and that's a very good question. Eli was punished, and let's give it the chapter and verse again.
1 Samuel chapter 3, verse 13.
Right. So now, in terms of the priests themselves, as we've been speaking about in the previous questions, parents, or basically parents are not going to die for the sins of their children, or vice versa, and everybody dies for their own sins. When it comes to the priesthood, the high priest is responsible for the priesthood overall. So he wasn't dying specifically because his sons died for their sins and the wrongs that they did. Eli died because he allowed his sons to desecrate the priesthood. When we go back to the book of Numbers in chapter 3 and even onwards, the priests and the Levites are responsible as a collective or as a unit for protecting their office. So the priests are responsible for protecting their priesthood. The Levites are responsible for protecting basically the charge of their tribe. So because Eli was the high priest, and under his leadership, there were priests that were desecrating the priesthood. doing things like eating with the blood, laying with women at the temple. Well, it wasn't the temple at the time, it was the tent of meeting. The lying with women at the tent of meeting and doing all of these things that desecrated the priesthood. His sons died specifically for the wrongs that they did, and Eli died for not protecting the priesthood. So that's excellent question. And it doesn't contradict what we read in Deuteronomy or in Ezekiel 18, but it goes in line with what we read in the book of Numbers in regards to the priests protecting the priesthood, and everybody is in charge of protecting. Every priest is responsible for protecting the priesthood and making sure that judgment is executed properly. So it's a combination of things. Even when we think about judges and what we read in the book of Deuteronomy, what judges are supposed to do and what they're supposed to be, that they're supposed to judge righteously. And if they're not judging righteously, then they will be punished for their unrighteous judgments that they give or for their lack of judgment that they perform. So all these things is what caused Eli to die, for not protecting the priesthood and not judging righteously when it came to his sons and their desecration of the priesthood.
Okay. Things they don't discuss in church, the last question. Violate Deuteronomy, Ezekiel, and Ezekiel 18 that says the parents, I guess this was the continuation of that question, and sons are not responsible for each other when all adults. So I guess that's the the continuation for that. He put it in two parts. That's why I didn't catch it.
So I'm gonna ask you this question that you don't have to answer right now, or put it out there for everybody. This was actually, I believe, a question that was asked online, and it came to me. And this is in regards to the teaching of yesterday with many congregations, where if a man divorces a woman, if she lays with another man, or she gets married to another man, and that man divorces her, or that man dies, she's not allowed to go back to the previous husband. So the question was, if a woman gets divorced and, God forbid, just have to put that in, add that in here. If she was raped, can she afterwards go back to the previous husband? So that was I thought it was a good question. So I'm just putting it out there to you. You don't have to answer it now. And I mentioned I was going to ask other people as well.
I think that when we look at Torah, right, rape being an act that's set aside. If you're married with your wife, right, and she's raped, that's no fault of hers, and she's not going to be penalized. I mean, there's going to be a traumatic experience if someone's wife is raped, right? But that would be a situation where the judges would determine, like, this was something that was out of the normal. This is not what Torah means. So now, if you really look at that law, there is an opening in that law. There is really no punishment for if someone takes. It just tells you not to do it. So obviously there's an opening for situations like that to happen because the laws are there, and we know that things like this happen, rape and things of that manner. So it shouldn't be the man shouldn't be penalized, the woman shouldn't be penalized for something that they could not control. So now when it comes to rape, I think that rape is a singular, although it is a sex crime, but it's also an assault, and it's something that should be looked at differently. And it's something separate of the normal. You understand what I'm saying? That's the way I look at it. If you really look at that law, there is no punishment for it if a man does it. I mean, it'll probably bring shame to him, or the judges will have something to say, but I guess it's something that's left up to the judges, right? Something that's left up to the judges. Look at David. David took back Michal, and it doesn't seem like God was upset with him with taking Michal back because She was basically taken from David and given to another man. It wasn't that Michal wanted to do this. It was she didn't have a choice. You get what I'm saying? So I think under different circumstances, it plays out differently. I don't know if my answer was good enough for you.
I said I would ask some other people before I give my answer.
Okay.
But I just thought it was a very good question.
No, that's a very good question.
Very good, based on the teachings that we have on that, and it was something that probably never came to many people's mind before. So, you know, that's why we appreciate, you know, the questions that people ask. It shows, number one, that people are studying and that people have a desire to get close to God when they ask questions. You know, there's the cliche of there's no dumb questions and no stupid questions as it relates to the secular world. But when it comes to, you know, the Holy Scriptures, you know, when people ask questions, it shows that they have a desire to actually learn. And before you can even ask a question, it shows that you have a handle of the topic or the subject. Because in order to ask a question, as many of these questions even today, it means that you were reading before. It just means that you want some clarity on something, and, you know, prayerfully God would allow us to obtain the clarity for ourselves even as we answer the questions. But it just shows that people are studying. I was just checking the chat real quick overall, and there was one question that wanted to be overlooked in regards to drinking coffee.
Oh, yes, I forgot to ask you. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, it just happened. I was just listening, just jump in a comment in real quick. I normally don't, but so in terms of the specific law, in terms of eating clean and unclean, if someone goes into McDonald's and buys coffee alone, and that coffee cup, and nothing else of that coffee, the sugar or whatever, or the milk that goes in that coffee doesn't violate Torah, then on the actual aspect of the law, that individual didn't do anything wrong. And also including with that the sugar, because before getting into an extensive conversation of sugar can be coming clean. So in lieu of the sugar being clean, in lieu of the milk being clean, because milk today could also be unclean because there's also ingredients that they add to milk that makes it unclean. So technically, as long as that coffee, the coffee cup, the sugar, the milk, everything is clean, then there's no violation of that individual that went into McDonald's to get the coffee. Now we're looking at things from a cultural and also a spiritual perspective, where those of us that keep the laws of God, and especially the way we represent the laws of God physically and even spiritually, physically in the aspect of wearing our fringes as we're supposed to, that we have to represent the law to the best of our ability. Now, an individual could go into McDonald's and get coffee, but people that are in the McDonald's or people that may be on outside seeing an individual with fringes on, or see an individual that keeps the laws of God going into McDonald's, doesn't know exactly what that person is going in there for. So there could be a misrepresentation of the laws of God by going into a place that serves primarily unclean foods, and given the representation that it's okay to just go in there, period. And this is where we have the concept of taking ownership for what you do.
Right.
The world, society says things like, only God could judge me, only, God knows the heart, things like that. So that's why, again, on the technicality, the person that just goes in there for a coffee, they didn't do anything wrong, but it's also misrepresentation of the commands of God, or a misrepresentation of the covenant that God made with the children of Israel to enter into places that serve unclean animals. And that also extends into going into places overall. That's like an Israelite going into like say a strip club or a type of party that involves the foreign worship, observing or being seen observing certain holidays that are connected to foreign gods. That all of these forms of misrepresentation are the things that we have to be careful of. So while the individual that partakes in any of these things can try to clear themselves and say that they are clear from the actual tenets of the law, the representation of the covenant is what we have to be careful of. So that's just in regards to that question. So it's not a yes or no answer, so to speak. The technicality is they didn't do anything wrong by just getting the coffee, but it's the misrepresentation of the covenant overall by doing so, because those that see it can get the wrong impression and follow suit and just go in there and probably say, well, if that person went in there to get something, then it's okay to do it. And again, unless they actually know the individual and speak to them, it could be a misrepresentation of that.
Hallelujah. Torah Abba, Rabbi, thank you all for your continuous support. Praying that the Most High Creator of heaven and earth will continue to bless each and every one of you. Don't forget that you could donate to us. As we do here. Like I said yesterday in the Proverbs, said, buy wisdom and sell it not. Well, you can help us out in terms of with all of the things that we do. You could donate to us via Venmo, PayPal, or Zelle by simply using the phone. Scan the QR codes and it will take you to the respective apps. Or like the admin put up on the screen all the ways that you could do it if you don't know how to, if you know how to go to the app. And for PayPal and Zelle, it's our email address, info@DCB.org. And for Venmo, it's @DCB. You can also donate to us via the super chat. The money symbol right next to where you type in the chat. You press that and it will prompt you and show you how to donate to us that way. You can also donate to us via check or money order. You can send them to 382 Hamilton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11231. Once again, 382 Hamilton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11231. Don't forget our raffle that's going to be drawn on Wednesday, November 23rd. Support the congregation. Buy as many raffles as you can. First prize, $1,200. Second prize, $500. Third prize, $300. To support our congregation, our organization. And let's do this. Let's do this right, all right? So thank you all once again. Oh, yes, Brother Ricardo attended our 10th anniversary dinner. Pictures will be up soon. There were over 600 pictures taken, so we got to sort them out. So thank you all once again, praying that the Creator of heaven and earth will continue to bless each and every one of you. Shalom, shalom, and everyone have a blessed day. And as I say these words, I pray that the Creator of heaven and earth bless us all. Yivareka Yehovah Yishmareka, Ya'ir Yehovah Panawaleka Wikuneka, Yisai Yehovah Panawaleka Weyasemlaka Shalom. May Yehovah bless thee and keep thee. May Yehovah make his face to shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. May Yehovah lift up his countenance upon thee and may he grant thee peace. Amen. Shalom, shalom, family. I pray that the Most High God will protect, keep, and help each and every one of us. Shalom, shalom. Hallelujah.
Let's get knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, his laws and commandments. The hot CHOKMAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, his laws and commandments. The hot CHOKMAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah.